Welcome to Dear Alice, a lifestyle approach to interior design.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dear Alice. We are doing kind of a part 2 on your emergency remodel.
Yes.
We thought it'd be fun to talk about the best ways to update an older home. Since we're sort of in that pocket, we just barely came off of we're riding high from Suze's last episode, where we got to hear the ins and outs of your emergency remodel.
Have you remodeled like an older, like a home at all? Or is it just like new build?
That is a very,
Like for yourself?
no,
Okay.
I haven't.
But you've always been a new build girl. Like, you've known that from
I am a new build girl. I love looking for the land. Yeah. I actually really love, I remember when we found our lot that I was like, what's the name of the street? Because Alice Lane was a street we lived on. And so I was like, that's kind of my thing, you know?
Mhm.
And when they said Wildflower Lane was a street, I'm like, that's
You're
it.
like, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I love a
Take it.
lane.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I think it's really fun to find the land and, you know, and then be able to look at it with an architect and plan it all. It's super fun.
And see it ground up.
When
obviously.
Adam and I were first married, we moved to Reston, Virginia, which is just 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. And we bought an end unit townhome, like a brownstone. And that was existing. And we did a little bit, but you know, when you're first married, it's not like you're doing a lot. And mostly we had a lot of empty rooms because I didn't want to make decisions that I wasn't going to love and live with. So we bought my sofa that I call the cream puff, that blue velvet sofa I love so much. But yeah, we bought things really slowly because we wanted to be really sure about it. And that's a scary thing. I can relate to a lot of people.
Especially when
trying
it's
to
like,
find your style, and especially when you're like in your 20s,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
These are big purchases. The biggest thing you've bought before might be a car, maybe your college education, but like a physical thing, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's hard to make those decisions.
For real.
But we're here for you. We have remodeled a lot of homes for other people. And I think there's like magic in the walls. It's really fun to think of the story and the history and think of like what features to highlight and what to lean into and what to pull away from. And it's fun to see what they're reacting to. It feels like a chemistry experiment psychologically, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of back to that inherited architecture. We talked about that before. And I think that was like a sentiment of like Bobby McAlpin or something that we read in a book where it's just like when you buy a remodel, you're buying inherited architecture. You're inheriting their architecture. Some of it's good. Some of it's not so good. And so it's just really trying to understand, you know, kind of like this whole process, especially as you're about to embark on this or you're living in a house that maybe you didn't build. It doesn't have your stamp or your like original flag, right? So you have to like try and identify like what, like when, what, like how you're going to attack this. Some people don't want to. There's a lot of people that are fine, just like that's not important to them. But if you're listening to this, that's important to you. Design is important to you. And if you're sitting in an existing house that doesn't feel like you, this is your permission to start considering what that could look like to make it feel more like you. And so I think it's just like, it's a process, right? And so I think that's what we're going to kind of go through today. You don't want to feel like you're constantly living in a house that's like not yours or it's half baked. Like you've done a little, and honestly, most of us have to do a little bit here and a little bit there. That is a very normal thing.
Yep.
Even with clients, like we can design a whole home, but sometimes they just take it like a menu. They're like, hey, we're going to tackle this. Like your sister, we did the whole basement, but she's tackling it like a little bit at a time.
Yep.
She's killing it. And it's like, it's feeling like her. And even like the small movements forward feel better than sitting in what she was.
Yep.
And it feels like her.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
And so today we're going to kind of like break down like I think how many did we have?
5.
Just 5 ways. Just like kind of start thinking about this, like these updates and the best ways to update an older home based off of our experience that have made the biggest impact. So,
yeah. So I think when I think of getting started, because I think that's the hard thing is like, where do I even start? I think Suzanne is a prime example of how to get started. And she does this in styling. She did this in her own home. And that is that she takes everything off. She completely will empty out the built-ins if we're doing that, or she'll empty off the entire center hall table or the whole console, and she starts with a blank slate. And when you bought your 1970s one, what do you call it?
Cowboy house. I don't
Cowboy
know.
house?
Rambler.
Yeah.
Cowboy Rambler.
That's my
Cowboy Rambler dream home
like
from 1971.
You know?
Yes.
Like they lived on a farm.
Suzanne took everything off. Yeah. Like including the vertical blinds. You were like, I don't even need a window treatment. I just need to see nothing.
And the railing to the stairs, which was crazy because like, how old was
kids.
Manolo?
He was barely born.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't even walking, but like I still had like a clumsy 5-year-old. But like honestly, the railing wasn't safe anyway. So I'm like here nor there. Like I should get
probably easier just to fall down the stairs without the railing.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And yeah, it felt better to my mind because and I mentioned this. If you listened to last week's episode, you know that this was a daunting process because like the house, yes, we're project people, but the house was like it's an old 1971 house, not necessarily a cool house. It has lots of cool inherited architecture. It had a lot of bad decisions. And a lot of things I've had to rip off and try and make it my own, which is, and you might be sitting in one of those right now. I don't know. But the best thing I could do for myself at that moment, I walked in, I immediately shared the worst window treatments that she left for me. So I ripped those off. I ripped off the blinds. Like I'd rather be a fishbowl in there and like put up something temporary than look at her decisions that were great for her at the time she made them, but they weren't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was like the whole process was just like tearing things out, tearing like even the flooring, the peel and stick, the carpet. I was just like, anything's better than this. Surely the subfloor painted white is better than this. And so that's what we did. We took off all the carpet. We took off the peel and stick. We took off everything. We took out the railing and just started to paint really. And so really, and I think too, it's just important to just like, don't look at something that you don't like. Take it away. Just take it away. Otherwise it's filling a void that you're going to forget about and you stop seeing things. Like we said, I'm just like, I think I like this orchid bathroom. Just is like, you've been living here too long. You need to pick up the pace.
Yes, totally. What is that called when you fall in love with your captor? When you've been kidnapped.
Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm syndrome
Yeah.
in the house.
Mm-hmm.
You start to think you're in love with it.
Yeah, that's why I think you need to just remove what you can immediately because then you just like get used to it and you're like, that's not so bad. Kind of like those purple cabinets you were talking about.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, we could make those work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you want to marry the bad guy that
Exactly.
took you. Yeah, he's looking pretty good now.
Oh.
Everything has redeeming qualities.
So yeah. So that is the tip number one is just remove what you can. Otherwise you stop seeing it. Even, and we're going to get into all of them, but even we'll keep going. I'm not going to move ahead. I was going to talk about lighting, but let's get into the next thing. What's number 2, Jess?
Number 2, after you remove what you can, is paint. We've said it before. We're going to say it again. Paint is the least expensive thing you can do for the biggest impact. Here's the bonus for Suzanne Hall. Her husband was a painter for years and is really good at painting. And so you were able to neutralize the palette just with your own blood, sweat, and tears. And you guys chose the color steam. You painted the floors, the walls, the ceilings in all of the main living spaces and hallways, corridors. And that made it feel like an entirely different space. Just that.
And probably smell.
Oh, smell. Gosh,
that sculpted
that's
carpet, that sculpted brown modeled carpet. Who knows what's been in there since the 70s? But when that went away and that floor became white, the whole thing was just like
infinite.
You could see for days. And really like that big tree out your window, which is your favorite thing, was like in focus inside the room. And it suddenly had this, it's like your own style was shining through because you had such cool furniture pieces and it felt really like an art gallery in there, which is what it is today. Yeah. So cool.
Yeah. And it was important too, to just kind of help. Because again, because of that big tree, we don't, and because of like not massive windows, we have a decent sized window in the front room, but most of the other windows are not big. 1971. Like it was really, really important to just make it feel lighter. And so that's another reason why we went with the lighter color. To just kind of bask the whole thing, just to try and like pull light in and reflect any light that we were getting off of the walls and bounce around and not have a stopping point. Because even and we had a white floor, we painted the flooring white in the attic. We did the same thing with that remodel too. It's just like the paint made the biggest difference. And honestly, I will probably always live with the white floor. I just love it. And I think it just like makes lines disappear. And it allows me to focus on the art. So
it always feels so clean too. I don't know how do you clean a white painted floor? You just mop it.
Like, honestly,
do you mop every day?
No, probably like other day, a couple days.
You have 3 little boys and you live on a farm.
I know. I know, right?
Yeah. It just doesn't show anything.
Oh, no.
It's like a white
does.
car.
No, it definitely does. I think like the next flooring that I put
You just
in
have
this
lots
house
of
will be-
rugs.
I have a lot of rugs, and I like the actual amount of like visible exposed white. It's not overwhelming to do that.
Got
Throw
it.
a mop down, but
Yeah.
anyway, but painting that place in the attic and here in any of the remodels has been made the biggest difference.
Oh yeah, your floor was white in the attic too.
We pulled off
So
all
rad.
the crap or the carpet, the crapet.
Also a
teal
good word for
it. Anyway, because that also had some like questionable materials on top of the wood floor, so we pulled it all up. And I remember I was watching an episode of $1 Million Decorators, and Mary McDonald had just painted a floor, and I was just like, I remember telling Tom, I'm just like, I think we should pull this up. And what do you think? It was a summer break between semesters. I'm like, how do you feel about painting this wood floor? He was like, all right, like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So that's how that first came to be. So don't be afraid to, and that's something that everyone can do, whether you're an experienced painter or you can just like work with a thing of painter's tape and like buy some buckets of paint. Anybody can paint. Throw your kids at it. I don't care. It'll make a difference and it'll make it feel better than it did.
So true.
Yeah. So
That's great. Okay, so paint is number 2 for us in any remodel after you've already removed everything you can. So we've got a blank slate now. Number 3.
Oh, number 3 is lighting. Lighting. This is something, if you are living in a home that doesn't feel like you, and someone else picked out the lighting and you hate it, I would remove it. I would remove it and have an exposed bulb. And that's what I have. And I've replaced a few of the lights already, but in the ones I'm still waiting to replace those, I'd rather see an exposed bulb than what they had there before. And that was part of pulling off the pickles. Because it's honestly, it's better than looking at their previous choice. That doesn't make sense with any of my stuff. The bulb looks better. It disappears. But I would just like get rid of any bad lighting. And then that'll be like a to-do list. It's like an obvious, tangible check mark list that's like your next item of business is to get a new light for the stair hall or to get a new light for the kitchen or whatever it is. Like it just reminds you versus like just being something that doesn't reflect you.
So when Susan's talking about number 1, which is remove what you can, you're also removing bad light fixtures.
Yeah, and usually it is just like weird globes or boob lights or things like that. I did that in the boys' rooms. And I'm just like, they just have light bulbs right now, but it's still better. And you don't even, anyway, and we'll get lights there eventually.
Yeah. And that's something like you can't live with. So you're like not getting used to that. So it's like almost like a constant reminder of like replace me.
Totally. And you will replace it, whether you can do it now or later, whatever. It's still better than living with someone else's light. But I will say, just like in what we do for a living, the lighting makes such a difference. And it's fun because that's the thing that goes up after like the home is finished. If we're doing a new build, everything's finished. They put up the mirrors and the lighting. That's the first thing that they install. And it is so fun to see lighting go up in an empty room. And like everything else because we've designed it. Everything else is going to layer inside, but the lighting's the first to be set. And it's just like it totally gives an identity to the room. It bounces light. You start to see how like natural light bounces off walls and how the actual fixtures are bouncing things with prismatic crystals or whatever it is. Like it starts to just like give a pulse to the room. And I think you had an experience and you did a great job with your lighting.
Well, when my new build was just being completed, we just had the lighting all installed and my brother came by to check it out, and see how it looked. And he was like, Jess, the lighting is so beautiful in this house. Even if you don't ever put furniture in here, this house looks good naked because you nailed it on the fixtures and how they kind of flowed from one room to the next. And I was like, wow, that's a really nice thing to say, but it was interesting just to see like the center hall table light just hanging kind of lower. And then the kitchen pendants were in the bathrooms. And it does have a completed fill. I mean, cabinetry would obviously be installed if they're hanging lighting and mirrors, but it somehow makes the home feel really finished. Yeah. So I think it's worth getting the lighting really right, getting those fixtures. They just bring a lot of personality and style to an otherwise empty space. Yeah. And there's such good like catapults for your existing furniture till you can get the stuff you want. But at least you started with extraordinary, great lighting that's interesting and has style, Yeah.
And really, we love lamp lighting. Don't get me wrong, but even having your lighting on a dimmer, even if you do that, so you like your lighting, but they're not on dimmers, that's something I think that's an upgrade to a remodel.
So true.
Just to have those lightings low. It's so pretty, and you get, I don't know, you see it differently at different times of day, and it pays you back in spades. I think lighting's massive.
It is.
So
yeah, make sure that you get the right Kelvin of light bulbs in
talk
that
to
lighting.
about what's the right Kelvin of light bulbs?
Well, we believe it's 2700. We like the warmest setting. I just think everybody looks prettier in it, and nothing's going to ruin a gorgeous light fixture faster than putting the wrong bulb in there.
Man,
it looks like
especially if you're like
cheap
4,000
lighting.
up.
It feels like fluorescent lights, and
good.
even if it's a gorgeous fixture, you're like, ew, it just looks wrong. It looks cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let that thing glow in the right light.
So like max would be like 3,500 if you're like in a
kitchen.
Even 3,000 is usually the max that go in a kitchen.
Yeah.
We're still the 27 to 3,000.
Yeah.
Don't really.
Well, and today it depends, right? Like it depends if you have a lot of natural light in your kitchen.
Yeah.
You have a decent amount of natural light in your kitchen.
Yeah.
So I don't think you'd need to go a lot brighter, but you know who you are. I mean, maybe you're living in the city and you don't have a lot of windows in your kitchen area. So yeah, you could use 3,000.
And if you're older, my parents, I always go inside their house and I love no lights on. I love natural light and just living like that. And they always throw them on because they're older. And so it's probably like how they see. They need the lights on. And so again, knowing who you are, knowing how you live, that's going to teach you.
Great point.
Teach your Kelvin. But I think aesthetically, higher than 3,000 just gets too cold. Yep. So
that's great.
That's number 3 is lighting.
Yeah. Number 4, Corey, what do we?
Overgrout, German schmear.
Oh yeah, you went there. Cool. Okay.
Pictures? We have pictures?
Pictures, we sure do.
We have some before and after pictures, and these are from clients' homes.
So this is the before, and that's the after.
So this is if you were in a remodel that has a stone exterior, and oftentimes they would do your mantle, your whole tower mantle, and they're bringing in that exterior stone. And maybe this house was built in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, and the rock is just throwing salt in your game, and it's super dark, and it's this massive architectural tower in this space. This is honestly the best thing that you could do for that rock. Unless it's an awesome rock and they selected it right then. Most of the time they didn't. So what we like about the Overgrout.
This doesn't even look like the same rock.
It sure doesn't.
That's awesome.
But
that's what you want.
Yeah, and it felt heavy. I think most of the time when we're redoing this, that's the verbiage the client's giving us. It's just it feels heavy. I need it to feel lighter, and I want it to feel brighter in these public spaces that they're spending time in. And so what the Overgrout does, it just kind of flushes and creates an even kill texture for that whole wall instead of it being undulated, stacked stone. And I think too, there's something very foundational about it too. And I think when you tear away, if you're in Europe or back east or something, you see the side of a foundation of a building, it's usually that grout is coming to the surface of the rock. It's flush. And so it's reminiscent of that and trying to just make it feel a little bit more foundational. I think there's something very anchoring about the stone, and I'm glad they want to keep it. But I think if you're going to keep your stone, this is what I would do. I would overgrout that. This is Jess's cousin that just barely, this is it before. So again, it's just a dark tower, and usually it's flanked by windows. And so again, it gets even darker. It's just in the shadows.
This makes it feel more cohesive and solid, it's one. I would put overgrouting maybe of that's the paint for
the exterior surfaces.
Yeah. It's just the biggest bang for your buck.
It cleans up those architectural heroes in the room, and you can make them work if you do tricks like this. You don't have to rip the entire structure out, which a lot of these examples are 2 stories high. So you can imagine just ripping it out and then having to replace it all with another material. So,
which was a consideration for her. That was an option that we proposed, where you can remove it and we can just do a new mantle. Well, of course, we can have finished work. We can do anything. And she's she was nostalgic about the stone. She's I want to keep it. And so we're okay, then if you keep it, this is our suggestion is to overgrout it. So,
yeah, it brought that house from the 2000s up to date, and it feels a lot fresher in her home. Yeah, it doesn't look like this big 2-story dated thing. It's been sitting in the middle of this brand new remodel. Yeah. So it's worth paying attention to that.
Yes, totally.
There's probably not any other spaces where there's rock inside of a home that we're like overgrouting. Like it's probably just the fireplace.
It's just the
if someone did it
fireplaces.
like on a wall or something like that, there was some in my old house that was on a wall and we just tore some of that out. So
Yeah.
I would say if it's like that, just tear it out.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I would be, I don't know if this trick works for all rock. Also, like I'm thinking of like a mid-century, like 50s, 60s, 70s home, like, and it's like more of a slim stacked rock. I don't know if it would make sense on that. If it's a home that's trying to feel European or something like that, then I think the overgrout works on the exterior. But if it's like mid-century, anything like that, I just want to say that out loud. So you're like, I have this cool 1960s mid-century and I'm going to overgrout this stone. It's probably not going to translate the same.
Yeah, because they wouldn't have done that.
They wouldn't have done that.
It's
like,
not
like
natural
natural to the architecture that was trying to be European at the time. So really consider that too. Like architecturally, what was trying to be, heroic about this stone.
Good
and
point.
So anyway, consider that.
Yeah. That's great.
Okay.
Number 5 is the railing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Railing.
I feel like this is an Alice Lane trademark move.
You too.
We love a custom railing on
railing.
every job. It's really fun. We get to work with great craftsmen to create some of these designs that we come up with. And it's never made of stock materials. It adds so much to the home and it feels like jewelry, I think.
It does. No, it feels like, and it can become very like personal. We have, depending on where you're at, we're going to show you some custom ones that we've done, but we have also worked like within catalogs too to find the prettiest and most refined of the actual railings, if we do have to do that. So know that they're out there, but you just get to be discerning and do a lot of research to figure out how to make this railing look as beautiful as possible.
Yeah.
And I would say in your area where like you need to find a fabrication shop that has a CNC and or lathe, because in order to make like, more custom pieces that aren't just like flat or square tubing, they'll need that. So, and I think there are a lot of people that make, they're like make hand railings, but it's just like the very like modern, like straight balustrade with the rectangle tubed railing. So
Totally. I mean, these are a few of our favorites. This is one from a client and dear friend of ours, and we've done a couple projects with her, but this is one that we worked with her on, and it was important that it was like the line was continuous. The stuff that the before of this picture is like nuts. Yeah. Like it was super heavy. I think it was built in probably the early mid 2000s. But it was really, really heavy. And so her whole thing is just like, she's always wanted to like lighten it up, and that's all of her concept photos. So yeah. What were you going to say?
Yeah. Oh, it's this is called the Highland Manor on our portfolio. If you're not watching this on YouTube, you can go check out this railing afterward. But she loves a circle motif, which is great. And she's an engineer. And so her brain deals with exactness all day. And I think these softer shapes feel really good to her brain. So it's fun to get to know your client and then sort of create something that will feel beautiful to their eyes and really fluid in her mind of exactness. This felt really beautiful. And I think this is one of my favorites we've ever done. So good. I
think with that one too, there was a lot of irregular architecture in the space. So to have something that was continuous and like continued that curve, I think was the win on that one. Okay. This is another one that we did down in St. George. We don't have this on the portfolio yet, but it might be when this airs. This is called the Windsor House, the Windsor Estate Manor, Windsor Manor. So sorry. It'll be Windsor Manor. Anyway, and she loves geometry, but she wanted it to be interesting. She loved like mixed iron details. And so this is what we came up with that, again, that mounting on the actual skirt. This was a fun one. I remember us sketching this out in like several different iterations of this. And this is where we landed, that it still had like, again, the geometry and the organization, but I think the details on this are really, really remarkable. And they had like these beautiful little brass joinings right there that were so beautiful.
And like just the combination of, is that iron? I'm guessing. Yeah. Iron and brass, like so cool. Like the plate, that's so rad. And the way, obviously, like you said, it connects to the skirt rather than on top of the tread. So cool.
And it's fun because it goes up that stretch, but then it actually goes on a breezeway too. So we really got to feel it, and it feels like a really strong architectural moment. But if you're sitting in, because we've done homes too where they haven't taken out the railing, and we look back at those pictures and you're like, it's good, but it could have been better if the railing was different. So really like look at it. If it's something that you love, keep it. That's great. But if it's something you don't, or you're trying to like make it work, see what options there are to make it better and make it you. So
I love that.
Stay with you.
Speaking of not stock railing.
Wow. Yeah, this one's so rad.
This is so neat. This is our Linden Art Manor, and it's Linden Art Manor.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's it.
This was a really fun one. They're really creative. She's super happy, and she wanted something that was unique, and so this is what we came up with an actual, probably a CNC, right, with an actual wood railing. And I love the way it curls at the bottom. And this is probably everybody that walks into this home, they're like, that stair railing, like it stops people in their tracks because it's just not common. You don't see it that often, but I think it's such a stunner. And it's so, the way, again, it's kind of like light, piercings. When like sun comes through, like you do get fun shadows as the light travels through the day. And it's just fun to feel something warm too. Like
it feels like a historic home, which the house on the exterior is an all stone home, and it feels historic.
It feels true. It feels has a lot of integrity.
But
to that.
I think it's fresh and unexpected in that white oak.
I agree.
So good.
Okay. This was from our Coastal Contemporary. And again, like keeping it simple. Again, with Coastal Contemporary, I felt like very effortless about the design in this home. But again, it's nothing, I don't think it's anything crazy. I think you could do something like this pretty easily, but it makes a big difference. So even if it's just like cleaning it up, like this isn't just one straight stock iron piece, like you do have that cylinder between splitting them, but it creates a really, really pretty rhythm. And I like a stained handrail for the most part, because it's just like
to hold
warmth.
that. Yeah.
There's a warmth to your hand, and there's a visual warmth too that connects back to the wood flooring usually.
Yeah.
I was going to say with the rhythm of it, it's awesome that it just wasn't kind of like all oblong too. You know what I mean? That it breaks up. So
Agreed.
when you guys are like designing a rhythm for a railing, where do you start with it?
We start with concept photos just to see what the client is drawn to. Some like Catherine Wong, she likes circles. Some people don't like circles.
Some people have an aversion to holes, and it's a phobia. We learned that about Emily Jackson. Like, she could never wear a polka dot. She could never have a circle or a hole. And I love a soft shape because everything in a house is so square and plumb. And and so I love to get a soft shape in wherever we can. But this is an example of using existing railing. This is from a 90s home, but we sprayed the whole thing high gloss black. Well, black and navy.
Was it paint or is that high gloss lacquer?
This is House of Kennedy. And I think that's a great trick on an existing railing on how to make an update that feels really impactful and contrasting with all that rhythm. This was great. I mean, you expect it to be white with an oak handrail, which is what it was. And then we just sprayed it. Yeah.
So cool.
I will say this is a great example of the paint too. I mean, if you go and look at it on the portfolio, you'll see that like it was a very large transformation for this whole home. But even this whole space to just have that, again, not hugely tall ceilings, be painted the white to just kind of like become backdrop. And then as you go into other spaces, you start to feel different energies in the rooms. So anyway, House of Kennedy is a great one to reference for an old remodel.
Yeah.
I think if you're in an old school, go there. And I think that's very hopeful.
Yeah, from the 90s. And also, I think Sue's will have your pictures back from your remodel. So we'll have those on the portfolio as well so that you guys can lean into that and see how great it looked, just to pull everything off, paint it white, neutralize it. So great.
Great furnishings.
Yeah, really great furnishings, beautiful storytelling, interesting design, and then design wins at the end of the day. And it's all really meaningful to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So good.
Awesome.
Well, we want to remind you guys that Alice-Line does remodels. In fact, we love them to take an older home where the bones are good and the history's been laid and give it a total facelift. That is our jam. We are currently booking projects through the end of 2024. So if you would like to work with us, we would love to hear from you. We're going to link to our sheet where you can fill out on our website a little bit about your project on Alice-Line Home or AliceLineInteriors.com. We'll link that page. So we would love to hear from you. Yes. And if it's just a room refresh that you're after, you could take advantage of our complimentary design services. It's your chance to work with one of our talented designers to find the right furniture, the right rugs, the right lighting for your space, and then tap into our amazing Rolodex of resources to see what will happen in your house. So,
and for that, you can just go to alicelanehome.com and you'll go to the design services tab, and it has the forms if you want to do like just the furnishings for the home or the home furnishing design service, or if you want to work on a remodel with us for ALID, it has both of them in there. And if you fill those out, we'll reach out to you and we'll get started.
Yep. Thanks. And we'll catch you guys next time. Hey, thanks for listening. If you like our show, please leave a 5-star rating.